Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another Underdog episode. Today, we got Season 4, Episode 6, Intrude. Loud talking fills the air. Chats about the upcoming lecture arouse. Inside the college class, the seats are filled in their ascending rows. The front is empty as the professor has not arrived yet. The talking abruptly stops as the lights of the class turn off. Everyone looks around confused until the professor walks in from a door to the side of his platform, his long, slicked-back hair bouncing with each step as he's dragging out a cart with a chunky device taking up all the space. The device is filled with metal pistons and motors, with tubes winding around the body of the machine. Class, please direct your attention to the front of the room. The students all look at the device, skeptical. With a click of this button, the professor lifts up a small clicker with a red button on the top, showing it to the crowd of students. I will be able to pause time in an enclosed field. The students chirp with laughter and awe as the professor gets ready to click. Oh, come on. Give me a countdown. The students groan and sigh, but eventually begin counting down. 3. The professor lowers his thumb over the red button. 2. The professor finds the perfect groove. 1. He clicks a button and the machine whirs. After a few seconds of nothing but wind-up, a familiar purple energy flows through the tubes. As the liquid rises up the tubes and gets higher up the machine, the cogs inside begin to turn faster. The liquid goes to a tube that flows into the top of the machine, and from the nozzle on the top shoots out a beam of the purple swirly energy, identical to the weird man's from yesterday. The purple glow illuminates the room, going across the students' and professors' faces. The professor steps back to his desk and fumbles with the contents inside. He pulls out a pencil and stands at the side of the cart. He brings the pencil up and positions it to the side of his head. He brings it back and throws it at the pillar of energy. As it reaches the pillar and enters it, the pencil comes to a complete halt. The class erupts in clapping and excitement. The professor raises his two hands and points at the pillar, a smirk on his mouth. What I like to call the Zone of Time. Patent pending. It cuts to the top of the mall base. Jake is crouched down and walking while Dylan is walking normally, both in their superhero suits. Wow, could you be any more discreet? I could, but I'm not going to. Dylan keeps walking stretched out as Jake scoffs. So tell me, what's your grand plan for when we get in here? I was supposed to make the plan? You really are as reckless as Alan says. Dylan stops completely at Jake's words. Jake stops too. Sorry. Shut up. Dylan points at the roof below them. See if you can hear anything. Jake leans down and puts his ear up to the floor. Dylan looks up at the double pink moon, squinting at them. He looks down at his hand before looking back at the moon and lifting his hand. He points it at the moons, but before he can do anything, Jake pushes his arm down. I heard nothing. Dylan scowls at Jake before stepping backwards. He pulls the blades off his back and kneels down to the spot Jake listened in. He points the blade's edges towards the floor before inserting them into the floor and beginning to saw open a circle into it. After carving for a minute, he stops and stands up. He sheaths the blades back into his back and goes over the outlined circle, beginning to stomp on it. Jake looks around the roof as the mildly loud booming sound fills the air. Finally, the hole in the roof opens as a circle of concrete falls into the building. Dylan looks down and jumps in. Inside, the dim light from the outside creates a funnel inside the building. Dylan scans the area as Jake jumps down after him. Dylan catches Jake and places him down next to him, still scanning them all. Dylan steps up the fallen circle from the roof and onto the cracked tile floor. He walks over to the glass railing and looks down at the lower floors. So, where are we off to? Dylan looks up and doesn't see anything, the darkness occupying the section of the mall they're in. Not sure, but if you see a man with this S on his forehead, tell me immediately. Jake nods silently, standing next to Dylan and also leaning on the railing. Where are all those soldiers? Dylan leans off the railing, looking behind them. The place is huge. They could be anywhere. Jake's face twitches slightly as he places a hand over his ear. Dylan notices this, glancing at him. You up for this? Jake nods as he looks out the hole in the roof. Yeah, why wouldn't I be? Well, come on. Let's go. Dylan begins to walk backwards from the railing they were just leaning on. Jake quickly scrambles off the railing and follows Dylan into the overwhelming darkness. Their footsteps are the only thing audible. The darkness is surrounding everything. Their footsteps stop, and a small flame appears in the frame, illuminating Dylan's suited face with orange. They continue walking as Dylan positions the flame over the walls by them, glowing the blank interior with orange. A clank fills the air, causing both Jake and Dylan to halt. Dylan blows on the fire, the wisp of smoke disappearing into the air. They both stay silent, trying to listen to the sounds around them. Nothing. Buzz. The two look ahead to see the now turned-on floodlight in front of them. Under the spotlight of white light nothing stands there. Stopping a few rows down. Nothing is under any of them, however, confusing Dylan and Jake. Two of the overhead shop doors open on both walls of the hallway and latch onto the top of them. Instinctively, Dylan unsheaths the blades off his back and grips onto them tightly, to his side, squinting down the lit hallway. Marching fills the air as 10 men, split evenly between the two hallways, begin to march out from the open gates of the stores. All of them wearing full black body armor with helmets that have a clear eyepiece in front of their eyes. They're all holding machine guns, clutched tightly to their stomachs as they march towards Dylan and Jake. Fear builds inside of Jake, but Dylan? The complete opposite. The men from the hallway raise their machine guns slightly to their eyes. All of them squeeze the trigger on their guns. Bullets begin to fly through the air. Dylan tosses his blade to his right hand to the ground and quickly flings his hand up and holds his palm out, stopping all the bullets during their onslaught. Jake begins to run in the opposite direction of the bullets as Dylan just stands there, still making the bullets frozen. More and more bullets fly into the visible wall of Dylan's powers. The men in black are still marching down the hallway firing. Dylan's grip on the tight blade tightens and it cuts to black. It cuts to Zara peeking her head out around a corner of one of the mall's white walls. She reaches her hand backwards and beckons at her Alan, who's leaned against the wall, checking left and right for any serpents. Zara and Alan go past the wall and walk into an open area of the mall. In the middle is an old fountain that has been turned off. Pots surround it, but there is nothing inside of them. Benches also surround the fountain. Zara goes up to the fountain and sits on the edge of it, and Alan sits next to her. Why is it so big if there's barely anyone here? I'm sure there's somewhere. We can't let our guards down. I'm worried about Jake. Zara sighs as she droops her head between her knees. Lately, Jake's been holding his own. I'm sure he's okay. It's not just that he's here. Alan squints at the words Zara. He's been acting a little strange lately. Strange how? Zara shakes her head. It's hard to describe. As if he's paranoid, but whatever it is he's paranoid about is really going to happen. Oh, so he's paranoid about Dylan? Zara stiffens slightly and raises her head out from between her knees. No. Alan shakes his head and rolls his eyes, looking away from Zara as she droops her head once again. What made him think this was a good idea? Same reason we thought this was a good idea. What, saving our friend? We don't know how many serpents are cluttered in this damn mall. We could be surrounded without even knowing it. Zara looks around in a faux panic. Oh my god, we're getting encircled. Do you take anything serious? Zara quickly jumps off the bench and turns to Alan. Just because you're a tough-as-nails son of a bitch doesn't mean everyone else has to be. At Zara's words, Alan speeds off the bench and in front of Zara, glaring down at her, and she is glaring right back. They stare at each other for a moment before. Let's go find Jake, Alan says before pushing past Zara and beginning to walk down a hallway of the mall. Zara looks back and takes a long, dragged-out blink and breath before following him. It cuts back to Dylan, who's still holding the wall of bullets back. Behind him, Jake is panicking. He's stuck between running away and staying with Dylan. Dylan, let's go! Dylan still holds his palm out, but turns his head back to glance at Jake. I'm not going anywhere. Dylan turns his head back around to the bullets and the men who are slowly approaching Dylan and Jake. A ringing sound fills Jake's ears as he covers them immediately, grimacing in pain. Dylan sheaths the blades from his left hand to his back and brings it up next to the hand, freezing the bullets in place. He spins his hands around each other, making the bullets that are still frozen change direction. Dylan extends his arm in a flaunt, releasing the bullets toward the midnight-dressed serpents. The bullets zip through the air as Dylan and Jake watch. Dylan smiles and Jake frowns as he continues to hold his ear safely. The bullets hit the serpents, wounding some, but clinking off most of their helmets. Dylan begins to walk forward, levitating the blade on the floor to his right hand and unsheathing the blade on his back with his left hand. He spins the blades in his hands as the serpents ahead of him recollect themselves and reload their guns. It cuts back to Zara and Alan, who begin to hear the ruckus. They look at each other before Alan speeds off towards it, holding Zara. It cuts back to the battle. Jake is still behind Dylan, holding onto his ears, bent over. Dylan looks back for a moment, concern flickering across his face. He flicks his eyes at the readying serpents and Jake. With a change of heart, Dylan sheaths the blades back onto his back and hurries over to Jake and starts to run, holding him away from the serpents. Dylan uses his powers to lift open one of the store doors, bullets flying through the air. Dylan runs under the frozen gate and goes inside, letting go of his powers, making the Jake drop down, jiggling from the impact. They get further back into the store, and the sound of running footsteps fill the air. In the back of the room, Dylan opens the door and goes in the back hallway, closing it behind him. Dylan puts Jake in front of him and bends down to look at him. What's wrong? Jake grimaces, his pain beginning to fade.
Raining. No. Ringing.
Dylan steps back nearly, leaning against the back door. Is that normal? Jake's breathing steadies. He leans off his knees, looking up at Dylan.
This ain't like the other times.
Dylan lets out a shaky exhale, looking down the end of the hallway. It cuts to Alan finishing his run and sliding across the floor, putting down Zara on the white tiles. Alan and Zara look at the serpents who are pulling and tugging at the store door, which is stuck inside the floor. Alan looks to Zara, both nodding at each other. Zara pulls out her wand, spinning it in her right hand. She brings a tip to her face and closes her eyes, taking a deep breath. She pulls her wand to the side in a sharp motion, the tip now surging with purple orbs and energy. She points a tip at the serpents, and the purple energy begins to swirl toward... She points a tip at the serpents, and the purple energy begins to swirl around the wand toward the top. Hey! The serpents tugging at the door snap around, arming their guns. Zara flicks her wand, and they all vanish, leaving behind a cloud of purple dust. Alan looks to Zara, confusion and surprise flickering over his face under the mask. Don't worry, they're still alive. But where? Zara rolls her eyes, beginning to walk toward the closed gate where the serpents were, Alan following her.
Take my word for it. They're fine. Alan scoffs it off and walks up to the gate. He places his hand on it and sparks a chain of lightning into it. It cuts to Jake and Dylan, and a loud boom comes from outside the hallway. Jake turns around and immediately, looking at the door that was behind him. Dylan also looks up, but is visibly more relaxed.
Do we run or do we stay?
Dylan weighs his options, looking at Jake's face. Jake's eyebrows are twitching and he's frowning. Seeing this, a pang of concern goes through Dylan, for the first time in ages. Come on. Dylan grabs Jake's arm and yanks him forward as he begins to walk down the hallway. Jake stumbles to his feet as he falls in line behind Dylan, whose shoulders are tenser than his. Dylan spots a door on the right side of the hallway and quickly slips into it. Jake follows in and closes the door gently behind him. The door from the hallway they were just in opens, and Zara and Alan come through it. Alan shuts the door behind him, and they begin to go down the hallway. As they're walking, they're interrupted as a loud bang rebounds down the hallway from behind them. Both quickly turn around and see the man with the slicked back hair from yesterday. Alan instantly recognizes him and furrows his brows from behind the mask. Alan turns to Zara. Go find Jake. I'll handle him. You sure? Alan turns away from Zara with a nod. He steps towards a man who's wearing the same clothes and has the same creepy smirk on his face. Zara steps backwards and begins to jog down the hallway. It cuts to Alan and the man standing apart from each other. Who are you? The man squints his eyes at Alan, straightening out his black trench coat. Just call me the Zome. Alan brings his head down and takes a deep breath, inhaling the stale air of the back hallway. He coughs out his exhale and looks back up at the Zome. The device you use on me. It's pretty impressive. Zome chuckles as he reaches a hand into the behind of his trench coat, rummaging for something. Oh, just simple tech. The Zome pulls out another one of his devices and clicks a tiny button on the flat bottom of it. Simple, but you're the first person to ever do something similar to that. Simple to me, not to you. The Zome slides it onto the floor again, but the hallway surges with dark blue lightning, and Alan suddenly appears in his face, staring down at the now cowering Zome. It cuts to Zara still jogging down the hallway before being pulled into a room on the side of the hall. Inside, she swats the person's arm away and defensively steps back, arming her wand. She lowers it as she sees that it's Jake is the one who pulled her into the room. Dylan is there too, but Zara tries to ignore him. She stashes her wand back and walks up to Jake, inspecting his face and his uncomfortable posture. Are you okay? Jake's eyes widen as he wasn't expecting that question out of the many possible ones.
I'm fine.
Zara sighs, running a hand through her brown, bunched-up hair. What are you two doing here? Zara's gaze drifts to Dylan momentarily before snapping back to Jake, who's about to explain.
We wanted to scope things out.
What are you doing here? Dylan's tone is cold. Zara backs away from Jake and steps to his side, now in front of Dylan. I came here looking for you two dumbasses. What makes you think it's a good idea to walk into the slithering psycho's main base? Dylan rolls his eyes and puts his hands on his hips, avoiding Zara's eyes. We don't need a lecture. Me and him are perfectly fine. Yeah,
What about if you two ran into the guy with the ability to slow time in his pocket? Or the maniac that shut up Rotor? Dylan huffs and takes his hand off his hips before he steps closer to Zara, barely biting back an explosive response. You think some low-level mercenaries can take me out? Maybe you're not the one I'm worried about. Dylan's eyes freeze their intense glare. He bites his lip as he backs off from Zara, his face falling to a frown. Jake continues to watch this conversation. You brought Jake here for what? Jake's not a baby. He can handle himself too. Zara looks at Jake, who's clearly taking no side, as he shrugs. Zara sighs at this and turns back to Dylan, scowling at him. Stop being reckless and put some respect on your own life. Maybe I just don't care anymore. No one else seems to. Finally, Jake decides to step in. Dylan, we care about you. You're just not being reasonable or sane right now, or the past months. Dylan snaps his head at Jake, glaring at him, but less than at Zara. I know I've been an asshole, and I know I've seriously been overacting to his death, but he meant so much to me. Without him, there would be no Underdog. Zara eases at this, and so does Dylan. Jake looks back at Dylan, listening intently to him. That still doesn't give you the right to be killing everyone that gets in your way. Dylan sighs, stepping away from both Jake and Zara and near the corner of the room. Dylan's quickly cut off from the opening of the door. Everyone guards themselves but ease when Alan walks in. Dylan doesn't ease as much as the other two. Alan sees the three, but his relieved expression wavers as he notices Dylan in the corner of the room. Alan looks at Zara. Why is he here? He just is. Dylan looks at Zara and flashes a quick smile before going back to his tight line on his mouth. The guy? Alan lifts his hand and begins to vibrate it. He clenches his fist and stabs it into the air, imitating him stabbing Zome. Zara nods as she gets visibly more relaxed, as her shoulders loosen. Zara swirls open a portal. Let's get the hell out of this mall. You guys go. I have to check something first. All three seem skeptical of Alan as they approach the portal. I'm just checking a suspicious area. Whatever, just be safe. Alan nods before running off. Jake walks through the portal and Zara quickly turns to Dylan, putting a hand on his chest, pushing him away from the portal. Why did you really drag him here? Dylan exhales sharply, grabbing Zara's wrist and forcing her hand off his chest, lowering her arm but keeping his hand on her wrist. He was alone at the warehouse, and I just seized my opportunity. I know you have good intentions, but keep your own problems to yourself. Dylan shakes his head, sighing, before reluctantly nodding. I will, but these serpents are everyone's problems now. We'll see. Zara starts to walk towards the portal, dragging Dylan in with her. The portal swirls shut, and it cuts to a section of the mall, one of the sections with plenty of the serpent's equipment. The floodlights are set up, and dark green tents and metal boxes are spread through the floors. In front of the glass railing on top of the top floor, Misner is sitting in a black fold-up chair, sitting with his hands folded neatly together. He's staring off into the open expanse of the mall, waiting for something. Someone. Finally, a streak of dark blue comes running but immediately stops as the purple energy of the Zome flows through a nozzle placed on the wall. Now frozen, Alan is staring at Misner, surprise and fear flushing into his body. Misner slowly gets out from his chair and walks up to Alan, eyeing his frozen form. Well, this'll be fun. It cuts to the makeshift grave outside the warehouse, the wooden cross shifting from the wind. Eventually it falls over and blows away. The hole in the ground, now the only evidence at the grave. Today, the dirt seemed as if it has moved to its previous location, oddly calm like yesterday. Oddly.